Okay, I want you to stop whatever you're doing for a second. Not metaphorically, literally stop. Because I'm about to tell you something that's gonna mess with your head a little. And I mean that in the best way possible. Ask anyone, your friend, your coworker, your uncle, who thinks he knows everything. What separates us from people who lived 2,000 years ago? You know what they'll say. Technology, smartphones, social media, the internet. And here's the thing. They're wrong. Not a little wrong, like fundamentally, biologically, neurologically wrong. Because here's what I've been sitting with for weeks now. The person watching a soccer game on their phone right now, the kid ripping open a pack of cards hoping for that rare drop, the teenager posting highlights on socials. They are doing tick for tick exactly what a Roman citizen did 2,000 years ago. Not as a metaphor, not kind of similar, the same. The exact same thing. And I think that changes everything about how we see ourselves. So today, we're going back, way back, to find out what ancient humans did when the work was done, what they did for fun, and what that tells us about who we actually are. Let's start with kids. 1889, Rome. A group of workers prying open a forgotten sarcophagus. Inside, the skeleton of a young girl, about 18 years old. She lived in the 2nd century AD. Her name was Creperea Trifena. And right there next to her bones, a doll. Not just any doll. 30 centimeters of carved ivory, jointed shoulders, elbows, hips, knees, all moving, held together by tiny metal pins, hair sculpted to match the empress of the time. A tiny gold mirror, miniature rings, an ivory comb. If you showed it to a kid today without saying a word, they would call it a Barbie. No cap. And this wasn't a one-off thing. In 5th century BC Greece, they were mass-producing clay dolls with movable limbs, stitched into tiny handmade clothes. Why do these objects look the same across 2,000 years? Because they answer the same need. A kid picking up a doll isn't just playing. She's running a simulation. She's rehearsing who she might become. That was true in Athens. It's true right now. But here's the part that gets me. In ancient Greece and Rome, girls had a ritual. The day before their wedding, 12, 15 years old, they walked to the temple of Artemis or Venus, and they left their toys on the altar. Forever. That's how you knew childhood was over. So when archaeologists find a doll inside a child's tomb, it means she never got to say goodbye to it herself. Boys weren't that different, by the way. Virgil, the Virgil, one of the greatest poets in history. He mentioned spinning tops in the Aeneid. They used leather whips to keep them going. That's a Beyblade. Straight up. Marbles. Pull-along wooden horses on wheels. Found in Egyptian tombs, Greek graves. The materials changed. The kid holding the toy? Identical. Okay, now let's talk about something that genuinely blew my mind. 4,600 years ago, that's 2,600 BC, in what is now Iraq, someone was sitting across a beautifully crafted wooden board, inlaid with shells, lapis lazuli, mother of pearl, rolling pyramid-shaped dice, calculating risk, playing strategy. The royal game of For decades we had the board but no rules. Then a researcher named Irving Finkel translated a clay tablet written in 177 BC, and there it was. The official rulebook, preserved in stone. And here is the wild part. Kings played on golden boards, soldiers on night watch. They carved the exact same grid directly into the stone floors of their barracks to kill time. Same game, different wallets. The Egyptian game Senate goes back to 3100 BC, started as pure strategy, and then became something bigger. Egyptians believed the movement of pieces. Across the board mirrored the soul's journey through the afterlife. Winning didn't just mean beating your opponent. It meant you were ready to face the gods. King Tutankhamun was buried with 4 Senate boards, because apparently, even in eternity, you don't want to be bored. Why do we spend hours on Catan, chess, civilization? Because real life is messy. The rules are unfair. The consequences are unpredictable. A game gives you something real life rarely does. A clean, contained world where the rules are the same for everyone. Psychologists call that state flow. Complete immersion. Zero noise from the outside world. A Mesopotamian farmer throwing pyramid dice. and a teenager planning a trade route in Settlers of Catan. Their brains are releasing the exact same dopamine. Same hit, different hardware. All right, y'all. Think the sports industry. The billion-dollar contracts. The merch. The ultras losing their minds in the stands. Is some modern invention? Nah. The Circus Maximus in Rome held up to 250,000 people. 250,000. That's a stadium that makes the Super Bowl look like a backyard cookout. Fans were split into 4 factions: green, blue, red, white, based on the color of the chariot driver's tunic, and the devotion was blind fam. The writer Pliny the Younger literally complained, if the driver switched tunics mid-race, the crowd would instantly switch loyalty. Sound familiar? The most successful charioteer in history, Gaius Apuleius Diocles, raced for 24 years. Modern economists calculated his career earnings at the equivalent of roughly $15 billion. More than Ronaldo, more than LeBron, more than anyone. In the fan culture, gladiators had groupies. On the walls of Pompeii, frozen in ash since 79 AD, graffiti still reads, "Celadus the Thracian makes the girls sigh." Kids played with clay figurines of their favorite fighters. Sweat and blood from gladiators were bottled and sold as cosmetics. That's not ancient history. That's a signed jersey. That's cologne with an athlete's name on it. That's the same exact thing. Here's why this hits so deep. We evolved in small tribes. We needed an us. We needed a them. That instinct didn't disappear with civilization. The stadium, ancient or modern, is a ritual space where that aggression gets to breathe. Where you can hug a stranger after a goal, the same way a Roman fan grabs someone after a perfect lap at the Circus Maximus. Before casino chips and slot machines, there was the astragalus, a sheep's ankle bone. Seriously. Asymmetrical, 4 sides, each worth a different value. You threw 4 of them at once and prayed for the Venus throw, all 4 showing different faces. The worst outcome? 4 ones, called the dog throw. Some things never change. Gambling was technically illegal in Roman taverns. Nobody cared. People bet gold rings, money, entire taverns. The historian Tacitus wrote about Germanic tribes who'd stake their own freedom on a dice roll. And if they lost, they walked into slavery without a fight. Emperor Augustus, the most powerful man in the world, would hand out 250 sesterces to every dinner guest, so they'd have something to bet with during the meal. He just needed the game going. Couldn't help himself. Sound like anyone you know? Today it's loot boxes, mystery packs, FIFA Ultimate Team Pulls, kids streaming themselves opening packs on Twitch, the chat exploding with every animation. Here's the neuroscience. Most people think dopamine spikes when you win. It doesn't. It spikes during the wait. The moment the dice are still rolling, the frame where the pack animation hasn't finished yet. That's called variable ratio reinforcement. Studied by B.F. Skinner, a guaranteed reward gets boring fast. A random reward puts the brain into overdrive. That fraction of a second where everything is suspended and fate hasn't decided yet, that's the most powerful drug the human brain produces, and we've been chasing it since we were throwing sheep bones in the dirt. Last one, and I think this is the deepest. An anthropologist named Polly Feistner spent years studying hunter-gatherer communities whose daily lives still resemble those of our earliest ancestors. She noticed something. During the day, people talked about practical stuff, food, work, logistics. But at night, gathered around a fire, 81% of conversations became stories, myths, legends, hunting tales, ghost stories. The fire wasn't just warmth and protection from predators. It was the first screen. By the 5th century BC, Athens had institutionalized this need. 14,000 citizens packed into stone seats to watch tragedies by Sophocles and Euripides. The Athenian state paid for poor citizens' tickets. A state-funded Netflix subscription. That's literally what it was. Aristotle called the effect catharsis. Watching an actor suffer on stage, amplified by a massive mask, let the audience feel terror and grief vicariously, and walk out lighter for it. That's exactly why you sob at a movie you know isn't real. That's why a TV finale can ruin your week. Your brain doesn't fully separate a lived experience from a witnessed one. When we watch someone suffer on screen, mirror neurons fire, the same ones identified by Italian neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti. Oxytocin releases, dopamine flows, the Greek weeping at the end of Oedipus Rex, and the person devastated by a season finale tonight. Same brain, same chemistry, same need. The medium changed, the human being did not. So, we started with a simple question. Did ancient humans play? And the answer isn't just yes. The answer is that every human civilization, every single one, has found a way to do the same 5 things. Give children objects to rehearse life with. Build game worlds where the rules are clear. Form tribes and pour that tribal fire into sport. Chase the electric second of pure uncertainty. Gather somewhere. Fire, theater, screen, and share a story. The next time someone tells you the world is getting worse, that young people today are lazy, or distracted, or lost, tell them about Pliny the Younger complaining about Roman sports ultras. Tell them about soldiers carving board games into the floor of military barracks. Tell them about an emperor who couldn't get through dinner without dice on the table. We are not new. We are the latest page in a very long book, written with different tools. Same hands,